You're listening to the Millennovator podcast, where we host the most innovative millennial entrepreneurs, and you learn the secret tips, proven tricks, and profitable tools they have picked up from entrepreneurial infancy to straight up business empire, and every stage in between. And now, your hosts and money Millennovators, Jonathan and Will.
Give me the right now, go right now. I'm trying to sit it now, go right now. We trying to get it now, go right now.
What is happening, Millennovator listeners, members of this community all over the nation and really worldwide at this point? I'm sitting here with Jonathan Murner. Jonathan, what's happening?
What is up? I am
bright and early this morning.
Yeah. You're better at this than I am for sure. So I'm trying to catch up here.
Well, you know, you and I have talked about doing challenges and hosting challenges on our podcast. And I want to challenge our listeners to shoot us a message at millennovator@gmail.com. I want to hear if you would like challenges, right? Like, we've talked about doing a 5 a.m. challenge for a month. I'm fine with that. I get up early, I work out early, I meditate early. I can zone in on that. Now I'm not sure if you'd be able to make that.
I'm going to do the work till 12 at night challenge. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you got to find when you're creative, right? I mean, I worked till 12 last night organizing our Dropbox files for this show today. By the way, this show today is a phenomenal... John, this is one of my favorite episodes we've done.
It really is. I mean, not only is there a treasure trove of information that Matt shares with us, but he's just a motivational guy. I really think that he could be a motivational speaker around the nation if he wasn't doing LLC University.
So Matt Horwitz, right, is the founder of LLC University.
Yep.
And LLC University, if you don't know, if you haven't ever Googled LLC, he's literally one of the first things that pops up. And if you could imagine SEO wise, for all you SEO freaks out there, all you nerds out there that are using Google AdWords, really trying to grind it out, LLC is probably a pretty popular word searched on Google, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy literally has created LLC University. And when I say LLC University, I don't mean like, oh, well, he's kind of teaching some things here and there. No. The dude has over 700,000 words on their website.
Information for every state. So you know how you can go on a website and they'll have a map of the United States and you click on a few states here, maybe a couple over here. No, every single state you can click on and he'll show you how to get an LLC in that
So
state.
Those of you in our audience that are in Anchorage, Alaska, because I do know for a fact that we have people in Alaska, this is for you. Don't feel like we've forgotten about you here in the mainland. You are on this show and it's dedicated to you. So guys, again, Matt, I mean, he's a super motivated guy. And really and truly, if you're somebody out there who is just fiddling around with an idea, we like to call those side hustlers of the Millennovator Nation. If you're out there fiddling with an idea, but you've yet to make that big leap of faith, right? You've yet to really, we just call that commitment. You've yet to commit to this idea of doing it full time or even just taking it on as a side hustle. You're still just kind of like dibbling, dabbling. Hey, I don't really know how to tax this income. I'm just having some cash here and there. Start an LLC.
Yeah, for sure.
And Matt gives you the tips on, number one, how to do that in this episode and some good, really great, solid advice. But number two, he talks about how it's more about the mentality.
One of his main points that he's going to talk about today is really just you have to get in the game to play. You have to get out there and you have to get after it. So he definitely has an avenue to help people do that, and he's a big advocate for that. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear what he has to say and just really be inspired and motivated by what his story says and what he says.
Well, and guys, as the header said, this guy literally took on, and I'm teasing this episode a little bit, but I just have to tell you this before we go into the interview. This guy literally took on $16,000 of credit card debt before he was even, making money or revenue within LLC. 16,000, right? And then after he bought the domain for 16,000, just the domain LLCU, he went on and paid 30,000 for the web servicing to create the actual site. All before creating revenue. But then, Jonathan, that's not even it, okay? That's just the tip of the iceberg. Then a few years in, he realized, you know what? I'm going to stop charging people to get the information on my site. I'm going to give it all away for free.
Preach.
So tune in to what Matt has to say, because I know you are going to love this episode. All right, guys, we're sitting here with Matt Horwitz of LLCU. That's LLC University. Matt, thank you so much for being here, man. I know that you're taking some time out of your day and out of your week from teaching thousands of people across this country how to create S-Corps, LLCs, incorporated businesses. How's it going, man?
Doing very well. Thank you. Having a great week. How are you fellas?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Glad to have you here today.
Yeah, for those
Awesome.
listening, it's a Thursday, before the 4th of July weekend. Most entrepreneurs don't sleep, don't eat, don't vacation, but I am actually going to the beach this weekend, so I'm pretty jazzed about that.
Same here.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, man. So, thanks for being here, first of all. And second, tell us and tell our listeners who don't know you and who haven't used your incredibly extensive knowledge and resources, tell us about LLCU.
Short version, we teach people how to form LLCs, also known as limited liability companies, in all 50 states for free.
Man, short and sweet.
That is
an
an elevator pitch that has been mastered.
I can always tell the clarity of just where somebody is along their journey with how many sentences it takes to explain what you do.
I like that. I've never really thought of it that way, but that's good.
Isn't that the truth, though? I mean,
You got to hack through the jungle for years to just get clarity, end up in the right village. You detour 100 different times. You're trying all different things. Yeah, to get it down to one sentence. And then usually you wait for the follow-up and someone's like, well, what's an LLC? Well, how do you make money? And then you can elaborate into there. But if you ever ask somebody what they do and you're like, do you know how this thing works? And they're like, well, what we do? And it's just like, oh, bro, you got to do some more work on that.
yeah, do not throw up on me right now, right?
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you're not on the right path and you're not on the journey. You are. In my experience, it just took me many, many years to really understand, number one, what we do, why it's unique, and how to say it to somebody that may or may not know what an LLC is.
Well, Matt, I wanted to ask you also, as far as who's your audience and what are the different ways that you can help them as far as your site goes and what you have to offer?
Sure. Our audience, we have a really wide range of both demo and psychographics. So, we get people as young as like 16, 17, 18 years old, and we help 50, 60-year-olds. So it's a pretty wide audience, but the need is just someone that's looking to either start a business or protect their personal liability or protect their assets. So they might be, we help a lot of real estate investors in that regard.
Yeah.
But anyone that's like, hey, I need to start a business, and that's usually like kind of an earlier search or an earlier mental nugget that they have. And then they come across this thing called liability, and they come across this thing called an LLC and a corporation. And then eventually they're like, hey, I should form an LLC. And then that's where we come in. LLCs are governed by state law. So we have 50 different states in the U.S. Each has different forms, requirements, procedures, its own set of quirks, and even post-formation things such as annual or biennial reports. So we literally break down a monstrosity of details and lay it out in like a 6th grade reading level, not only, all 50 states, but dozens of documents and hundreds of steps. And we take the complex and make it super simple.
That's one of the toughest things in the world to do, is to break something down and have a 6th grader be able to do it. LLCs, it can be a very, very complicated matter.
It's intimidating. It's
And an intimidating
Yeah.
matter, but the fact that you guys are like, here, click the next page to go over that. I mean, and you've told me prior that your website has like over 600,000 words?
Almost 650,000 words right now, not including words and videos.
That's crazy.
Nuts. So tell me a little bit more. I love what you do because of why you do it. So what led you into this whole entrepreneurial journey? Because you are a Millennovator. You are a millennial entrepreneur who is out there teaching and helping and providing your expertise for these people. But why did you get to where you are today?
Cool. It's a great question. And this is kind of like my personality is I'm just a truth seeker. I go super, super deep. So right away I'm like, well, it all started at birth. And, I literally like, it's hard to figure out like, where's the inflection point or where did things start? A lot of things have changed my life over the past decade and a half. I really got into entrepreneurship when I started reading books when I was 19, 20. And I was selling real estate at the time while I was in college. I got my real estate license when I was 20, and I had about a 5-year career in real estate. And I worked with investors. So my first year in the business, I sold like 18 houses. So having a ton of real world experience while in college, in addition to reading a lot of books like your good starters, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, all the different mindset. So I read a lot of mindset, a lot of business, a lot of money, a lot of spirituality, personal growth, self-growth, travel, exploration, minimalism, all kinds of stuff. Basically, while I was selling real estate and like being like, oh, should I go to this BS class about this? Or like, should I go to a settlement and like pick up a $7,000 check? Different things like that started to reframe my mind. And it was really a combination of the books I read. I did a lot of international travel to Latin American countries, Central and South America. And basically the travels in the books just expanded my mind so much that while I was going through somebody else's online course about real estate investing strategies, I was like, what's this guy doing? Oh, he's selling information on the internet. Oh, this is kind of cool. And then I went down a rabbit hole and I discovered digital information products. And I've always been a teacher my whole life. I just love learning. I love communicating. It's just something that's always been in my personality, and it just gets stronger as time goes on. And I was going through an online course about how to create an online course. And I was like, well, what can I teach? I was like, I know how to set up LLCs in Pennsylvania because that's where I grew up and that's where I did business for real estate, a lot of LLCs in the real estate business. So I was like, I'm going to create this website called llcnpa.com. Back then we had a different paid model. We charged $179 for someone to become a member and get access to our information. So the information on our site, we actually used to sell for $179, and we did tens of thousands of dollars in sales and had hundreds of customers and things like that. It was really an evolution. So initially I wanted freedom. I wanted to travel. And I wanted to teach online. So I created a website that wasn't LLC University, but was essentially the seed and the birth of LLC University. That was only how to set up an LLC in Pennsylvania. I thought I was going to crush it in 6 months and make like $5,000 a month, like right out of the gate. Man, it took forever. And I went into a good chunk of debt in 2010 and 2011. So initially, I wouldn't say my why was so big, but as I developed over the years, and especially about a year and a half ago, we pivoted the business model to free. I just took a much more, I was much more wiser, much older, and just took to like, hey, I don't need to like make a ton of money from this right now, but I'm going to provide the most value in the space, and I'll get mine in the long game, or whether that takes 2, 3, 5, 7 years. So that was kind of like a long answer. I know you asked the why, but it's pretty my own nature is when I explain things, I tend to kind of self-dissect, and I really try to pay attention like on the multiple steps. Like that's kind of why I like teaching. I can really understand kind of all the steps or all the processes or all the stuff I've gone through over the years, whether it's like giving somebody information about life or just understanding where somebody is when they're setting up an LLC and they're like stressed out and overwhelmed and scared. And it's kind of weird because you're forming a legal entity, you're afraid of getting sued, and it's like, holy crap, am I filling this form out correctly? Am I even filling out the right form? Things like that. So
I've been there.
Yeah. So I guess in summary, again, that was kind of a long-winded answer. Hopefully there's some value in there, but I just really, really love teaching. It's just something that I just get more clarity as time goes on. And it's super rewarding just to get messages of like, because the LLC and just business formation space in general is very closed curtain. There's not a lot of real helpful free information. There's a lot of shady stuff. There's a lot of BS. And when I get a comment on YouTube, that's like, man, this is the most, like, you're the most honest dude I've seen on YouTube about this. I'm like, yes. So that just like kind of keeps us going.
Well, that's awesome that you say that. I mean, such a maturity for you in business, obviously, like, first off, realizing that the value, bringing the value ultimately bring money down the line, and you just want to create the most value you can with people. You got to realize that every part of your adult life, really, if you take all those pieces and put them together, that's how you got to where you are. It's not really one necessarily tipping point, and it's awesome that you realize that and see how all those pieces fit together. Something we've recently talked about with several different people.
Yeah, well, and the mindset, man, thinking abundantly. Right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like, I don't need to just close all of this and like you said, close curtain. That's how the legal world is, because that is a perfect way to put that term. But really and truly, any educational portal and really any online digital marketing is that way too. It's kind of like some people just hide the goods and all of the goods. They're like, look, I'll give you this little piece, but man, really and truly for $69.99 or $69.93 a month, you're going to get all of this, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I get that. There is a part there, and there's a point of running on online business, right? As entrepreneurs, sometimes we do work for free, let's be honest, but we're not doing all of this just to give it all away for free. There is a revenue proposition there somewhere.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're putting people ahead of that today is monstrous. So can you talk a little bit about like how you did pivot? Because you mentioned earlier that, you guys thought, well, I'm going to start locally here in the state of Pennsylvania. We're going to charge some quiche to get our resources. But then you said, well, we opened it wide open. What made you want to open it wide open? And then what results did you see after you did?
Sure. I'll work backwards. So June 2016, we pivoted to free. We took a whole bunch of information and really high quality stuff that was behind a paywall on like a, kind of a private members login URL. Now, it wasn't just making it free. We made stuff free. And at that time, we only had like 13 or 14 states we were teaching in. And then I just ramped up the writing and the production. And we basically wrote like up to 40. We had like then in 1 year, we went from 13 states to like 40 states. So somehow making it free actually built this massive energy and momentum because I could see it month over month. But when I say I started backwards, our traffic grew over 4,000% in 1 year. This model, there's so many intricacies and nuances, and this isn't like the way. There is no right way. It's all nuanced as nuanced. It just worked for us. I also saw some other people in the space. I kind of kept an eye, did a little bit of networking, had some conversations with some other people who were quote unquote competitors, but we kind of just sort of shared a couple strategies and ideas. And I saw a bunch of people giving their content out for free and then monetizing via like affiliate services and things like that. So in short, we grew 4,000%. And instead of trying to like hold on to what we knew was right, we just let it out for free. And then because the traffic exploded, we just got a ton of sort of insight and market validation. It's kind of like a hybrid model of like lean methodologies or agile development, in where it's like you just give something out to as many people as possible, or whether or not it's free, and you just listen to the people, listen to the market. What do they want to pay, or do they want it? Different things like that. I got scattered at the end there on that one. But like in short, I was making money for years, just not enough. Like it wasn't a full-time income. It was just like side money. And I'm like, man, this is so much bigger. I mean, it sounds tacky, but it literally feels like it's like meant to be now. Like it just feels so much more congruent. I feel so much more aligned when I talk about it, because like LLCs are confusing. Teaching online is confusing. So telling people like, oh, we have this thing called, we teach you how to form an LLC. It's online, but you got to buy access to the course and you get a password and then you log in. And then like, it's just super complicated. Where now it's just like, here it is for free. And now there's, 1,500 people a day, like Monday through Friday. Yeah, it was influenced by others and just the fact that what I was doing didn't work, and we were just willing to try. And thankfully, the internet allows you to pivot. Like I'm taking some time off over the next couple of months. So we're just taking the phone number off of like a bunch of pages on the website. Like I just don't need people calling me and interrupting me. So like I'm just taking some time off. And the internet is really cool like that, because we pivot and test stuff constantly. I heard something really good recently, which is like be super rigid in your values, but be extremely nimble and flexible in your tactics. So like your strategy and your why is always constant, and you're always serving the need of the customers. But how you serve that need and what needs you serve, you can really experiment and just taste a lot of different things, whether that's like affiliate marketing, or you're going to sell your own services, or you're going to sell somebody else's services, or you're going to white label, or you're going to sell advertising. There's so many different ways around it. Anyways, it's quite refreshing, because I mean, when I started this like 7 years ago, I mean, like I thought it was the bomb. Like I knew it was awesome, like before it even began. In the past year, it's definitely like I've hit the validation of like we broke even, and revenue's rising, profits rising, traffic's rising, reviews and feedback, like everything's on the rise. And I'm like, yeah, I knew it back in the day. Like I knew it. Just took me 7 years.
Well, Matt, I love the fact that you just said, you got to just poke around a little bit. I once had a business mentor tell me that you always, always, always throw out your first pancake. So just get to cooking, right? So like the point is, whatever you do, the first time you do it, it's probably not going to work, right? It's going to be ugly. It's going to need revision. It's going to need practice. But the fact that you just get out there and you try it out to see and test that out, that's so crucial and vital to a startup business, someone who's just getting started. So can you put yourself back when you did make that?
I just interject, like, dude, it's being in the game versus being on the sidelines. Like,
yeah,
man,
no
even
doubt,
better than
man.
the pancake. Like, it doesn't matter if you suck. I mean, you got cleats on, you're on the field.
Yeah.
Like I've read dozens of books, gone to dozens of seminars, spent thousands. I've gone through so much knowledge and education, but the whole time I was learning, I was in the game, like making that connection from what you learn on the field and then what you learn by reading.
Well, being able to apply it, right?
Yeah, it's like strategy and tactics. It's Gary V's clouds and dirt.
Nice.
It's all of that stuff combined. But I think that's the biggest thing is like, but again, that's my personality. I'm kind of like an extremist. I just jump in and then just figure it out along the way. But the learnings are so organic and natural because I'm on the field, not on the sideline just analyzing. So
knowledge does not equal understanding. I mean, you got to get out there and do it. So last June, when you said you made that change, because there are some entrepreneurs who are listening to this and thinking about maybe changing a piece or shifting a piece of the business model, and it may have been tough for you at the time to give up this revenue to make that plunge.
Oh, man.
What did that feel like? And then also you were like tripling your workload, right? I mean, you had to work on like 40 or 35 states to come up with all this info. How did you feel inside when you were like, all right, we're going to give up this cash in order to make future gains?
In short, intuition is the answer. It just was aligned. It just felt so good on all levels. Whenever I have a desire and I'm scared of it at the same time, for me, it's a sign of opportunity for personal growth. Whether that's pivoting your business model to free or having that uncomfortable conversation or like approaching that person and saying like, hey, we should grab coffee. That feeling of fear and desire for me has guided me in so many ways in life, not just business. So
That's awesome, man.
I've honed that part of me. So I'm super entrepreneurially, like I'm all about business and things like that. But I'm like more so about like the journey of life and spirituality and like following your path. So for me, everything just felt so good. And I was also terrified. And that was why I needed to do it. Within a couple of weeks, it just was like the momentum and the energy that got opened, because instead of me trying to hold on and constrict, it just flowed. So that was also validation that I was doing the right thing. And then we could just see things starting to grow week over week right out of the gate. But it was scary as heck. I mean, at the same time, I actually had a web development business on the side where I was, I had 100+ web clients. That was basically like my quote unquote full-time gig while I side hustled LLC University for years. January of 2016, even after I had a client fly me out of state and trying to get me on like a really healthy retainer, like I was doing super well. It was just shy of like, I don't know, I think I grossed like 70 or 80,000 bucks a year doing web dev part-time. Like it was good. I literally quit cold turkey. I mass emailed all clients. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing these services anymore.
Wow.
So I know my personality, and this is not advice for everybody, but hey, if this can rub off, if you can just take 5 or 10% of this and just apply it, you kind of got to know your risk tolerance and how you are as a person. And I just know who I am as a person and who I am as a soul. So when I know it's time to go, I'm burn the ships, drop all the bridges, go all in. I dropped like a $5,000 to $8,000 a month income to zero. And I just focused solely on LLC University, and then lost money for 15 months until we broke even.
Well, and Matt, go back to that, because you just mentioned about risk tolerance and knowing your risk tolerance and going all in anything that you do, right? You told me when we first spoke that you took on a bit of a risk when you bought the domain name, right? Can you talk about where you were when you were like, all right, I'm doing this thing?
Yeah, I was living in Miami at the time. I remember it vividly. This was 2013. This was in between where I had already had LLCinPA.com. I had a website called LLCinFlorida.com. These were like the childs that became the new site, LLCuniversity.com. And I already... Did I even? No, I was literally just only had 2 states at the time. And I already knew I was sitting on a national idea because I had gone through so many different online trainings. I saw like the Experts Academy and like the Web Developers University and like all these different words. And I just was like, man, LLC University just sounds a lot cooler than LLC School or LLC Academy or like LLC anything else. So I chewed on this brand name for like months, and I was like, dang, this name is solid. And it was owned by somebody else. He's a lawyer in Utah. The short version of the story, I mean, I get into the details if you want, but in short, it took me 10 months to negotiate and go back and forth with these guys for the domain name. But I mean, in going all in, like I've gone all in like 4 times already, man. Like the stuff recently, like that was just one version of going all in. But before any of this even happened, before we even pivoted to free and before we had hundreds of customers, I spent $16,125 to buy the URL on a credit card.
Ugh.
So man. I just like,
I hope that you like have framed that statement and just thrown it up on your wall or something. 'Cause I love that story though, because it just shows like people are like, I can't do this. There's no way I can. There's no way. Hey, buddy, let me tell you what. If you take 16 grand and put it on a credit card for something, you're gonna have the will to do it to get there.
That brings up something I wanted to bring up a while ago, but I'm glad I waited. You mentioned you've gone all in 4, 5, maybe even more times.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our listeners might think, and it is a big part of it, obviously, you got to, like we said, you got to get in the game. You got to take the plunge to get out there.
Yeah.
But after you do that, that's not the only hard decision you're going to have to make.
Gosh.
You're going to have to take the plunge several more times. So once you get out there, regroup and get ready to get hit again.
I would say like you either need to have a stomach that can grow or you want to have a stomach that can grow. So for me, there's some quote I had on my wall like a decade ago that was something like, a man does not really know all who he is or all that he can do unless he takes on like more than he can or something. So I just find that kind of cool. Is like humans are quite, and again, you had to translate this into your own personality. Like if you already you don't have to be as hardcore as I am. Like, it's my strength and it's my weakness. Like, everything has a pro and a con. Like, it served me really, really well. But then I also made a mistake, and I bought a domain name, and I bought a website for $30,000 in November, and it literally tanked 2 months later. Like, it was a mistake. I'm super thankful for that lesson, because I recovered some of my money, like $5,000, and I still own the asset. But I'm just like, dang, man, stay your course. Like me, I'm a depth guy. I got to go in all in, like one thing only. And I had a business partner for a couple months, and the guy has 127 websites. I can only have one. Like, I can't have more than one. So like, that was a very expensive lesson, but that could have costed me millions, and that could have bankrupted me in 10 years. So like, I mean, that's just one example of like dozens that probably happened to me in like on like a year, some micro, some macro. But backing up, it's like you either already have the stomach or you want to have the stomach. And if you want to have the stomach to grow, and you're interested in personal development and growth and like having freedom and having your own business and all the good stuff that comes with it, if you have enough desire, you know, like going back to that fear and desire, like if you really want it and you're like intimidated by it, it's because you're scared of it, because you're going to grow from it. And you have enough fortitude, you have enough resourcefulness within you to take that step whenever you have fear and desire. So I forgot the question, but I think that was a good point.
I mean, Pat Flynn's got a really awesome podcast that I follow. I don't know if you're familiar with him, the Smart Passive Income Podcast, but
Yeah.
he preaches the same thing, man. I mean, you're never going to get anywhere great with being comfortable. It just, it won't happen. You won't grow. You're not going to challenge yourself. You're going to be stagnant. And really and truly, the majority of our listeners out there who are that entrepreneurial spirit are never really satisfied. Like, in fact, we had a show a couple weeks back where somebody was talking about how you can always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but really and truly, you've accepted the fact that that tunnel does not ever end.
Dude, and I just started, man. Like I'd been at it for 7 years, and we just kind of like hit a new crescendo. But I'm just like, bro, this is inning number one. Like now I'm in inning number one. And
love it.
But, you know, at least I have some money to like back up, like, you know, whatever kind of comes my way, because I've also stomached a lot of storms. I've scraped low in my bank account. Like, I don't even know how many times. And that's not a recommendation at all. Like, and you don't have to do that to quote unquote be successful or have a good business or whatever. That's just my personality. I'm just so like, now here's the thing too, you can believe all you want, but you actually also have to have some chops, and you got to be good at it. Like, that's just a big thing too. So I certainly feel good at what I do now, but I didn't always know that I was like super good at what I did. So it's like, you got to take this advice with a grain of salt. Like, you can believe all you want and go all in, and you can get hit so hard, and then you might not be able to come back in the game. So like, not to discourage, but it's not every story is like this. But what I'm really trying to do when I kind of talk like this is just like speak to the guy that kind of, or the guy or the gal that kind of already knows that they're ready to pull the trigger. And this is just that extra kick in the rear that they're like, screw it. Like, this weekend, I'm writing that 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, man.
But if this stirs up a ton of anxiety in somebody, like, hey, even if you want it, you just might not be ready for it right now, but like maybe in 2019 or like in 2020 or like in 6 months, you can start to make more steps to it. So I don't say this stuff as advice. It's just my journey, and take what you can from it.
Well, look, that's why this show is founded right there, Matt, is people like you who have made the plunge, who have made the jump to be able to go back and look back and think back on where they were 3, 5, 10 years ago and say, I'm so thankful I did that. Let me share this reasoning, because somebody out there is side hustling just like you were, man. They may not be making 70 or 80K from that side hustle. It may be $1,000 a month, or maybe $500 or $600 a month, but they're testing out an idea or a product or a service and building up some client loyalty, right? And eventually, you're right, that people get to the point where they're like, this is the last straw. This is it. Screw it, man. I'm out of here. 2 weeks from now, I'm going full. I'm out. You know, whether that's a basement office or a shared workspace in a city, they're just doing it. And our goal is to have people just like you here, not only sharing your knowledge and what you're so great at, which is founding LLCs, but also, man, just the passion that you bring to the table and the inspiration that you have. Because, you know, entrepreneurship's dirty, man. It's not easy. It's tough. Nothing about it is easy. But when it works, man, is it the most grandest, organic, just infectious feeling ever, you know?
I mean, talk about like being like depressed or like, you know, emotionally eating for a month on end and just feeling like crap. You know, that month kind of passes, but like telling these stories is like it literally just makes it all worth it. Like, it's so enjoyable to just like share kind of, it makes it like, I don't know, it's weird. Like, it sucks in the moment, but you look back and it really is a really, really rich memory. And let me actually self-edit some stuff that I already said, because I just had something click in my brain. Like, this is the millennial audience. Like, yeah, maybe my risk tolerance is like super high, or I'm just a risk taker, or like I'm an extremist. But like dudes and dudettes out there that are like in their 20s, like you can lose it all and just get another job in 3 years. Like, so I take back what I said, man. Just if you just jump in, even if you're close to the fence, just test it out. Like, the worst, it's like, this is the time to take that risk, to have these learnings. We're young enough that you can always choose the safe route. Like, even if you're 39, you can start building again at 43.
Oh, there's no doubt. Well, and our generation, this millennial generation, is starting 2 times the amount of businesses than our parents did. And it's not only that, but we're starting them 8 years sooner, which is nuts, right? So, and you're the one who's out there on the front lines getting that started. If you had some advice for somebody as far as LLCs, like, what are some of the more important things to focus on?
Sure. I would say a big mistake is the state of choice. I'll talk about that in a second. Look, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I love lawyers. I talk to attorneys all the time. I'm probably going to go back to law school at some point. I'm fascinated with law, and I think if you want to hire a lawyer and you have the funds, by all means, if you find a good lawyer, that's a really, really kind of valuable way to go about it. You're going to learn a lot in addition to getting your LLC set up. The lawyer is going to help you with kind of the auxiliary or the secondary things connected with it. And one of the biggest mistakes is, I guess for most people, when they think out, like the 2 biggest questions are LLC versus corporation. And then most people end up, usually the short answer is, if you're asking, should I form an LLC or a corporation? The answer is LLC. People who should form a C corporation already know from the get. It's like your stereotypical like Silicon Valley startup looking to raise like venture capital money or like take a company IPO. The LLC is very, very easy. It has the exact same liability protection as a corporation. It's just a lot easier to manage. There's no corporate formalities. You don't have to record meeting minutes. You don't have to have an annual meeting. You don't have to elect a board of directors. So you don't have to like issue shares. You can just you get all of that kind of in one, ownership unit of LLC interest. Again, but I don't say like LLC is superior. We just focus on LLCs because it's the 80-20. Most people just do LLCs. So we just go after that audience. I'm not trying to convince somebody that LLC is better than a corporation. Just statistically, it's the most commonly used legal entity, especially for people starting out. And for real estate investors, it's a no-brainer. The LLC has as much better tax advantages than the C Corp. Then at that point, people hear all this hype and all this BS about like Delaware and Wyoming and Nevada. And look, not that there's not a lot of validity to the different jurisdictions. There certainly are. But if this is your first LLC, most people should be forming this LLC in their home state. That's known as a domestic LLC. Because LLCs are governed by state law, if you form an LLC, let's say in Alabama, that's where the LLC is doing business. That's where you're operating from. But if you say, oh, maybe I should form an LLC in Nevada, if you form an LLC in Nevada, but you're legally doing business in Alabama, you're going to be then required to register that Nevada LLC, which is a domestic LLC in Nevada, as what's called a foreign LLC in Alabama. So now you thought you were just forming a Nevada LLC, but that Nevada LLC cannot legally operate and do business in Alabama unless it's qualified or authorized to do business there. That's called a foreign LLC registration. Great news. Now you went out of state to come back in state. Now you have 2 LLCs, a registered agent fee in the foreign state, and you're paying annual fees in both states. And guess what? Taxes are paid where the money is made. So if you're earning your income in Alabama, even though you have a Nevada LLC, you're not going to get any tax savings or advantages whatsoever. You're still going to pay taxes in Alabama. That one is kind of like people are like, oh, wow, that like kind of demystifies that whole thing. Now, if you're more savvy and you want to get into like real estate and like holding companies and things like that, then you want to kind of start to look. That's where it's like you might want to have a conversation with a lawyer. Not that I can't talk about this stuff, but it's probably not a good piece of information to put on a podcast, because what this does cause is this causes like over liability protection and then over analysis paralysis. Because now you're like, oh my God, now I'm going to set up an LLC in like the Nevis and Kitts Islands in the Caribbean to hold my Nevada company, which is then going to be like a member of my LLC in Alabama. And it's like, dude, you got a taco stand and you're making $100 a month. Like, just so it's kind of like, there's not one, it's not black. Number one, it's not black and white. Number two, there's not one answer that fits all. But if you're starting out, you need to get in the dang game. You know, just set up the LLC in your home state, start making money, then worry about other stuff later. Then if you really start to kill it and a year later, you can close down that LLC and form a new entity or do something more fancy. But if you try to go way too fancy for your $500 a month business, it's questionable whether or not that's over asset protection.
Well, Matt, you've given us so many awesome pieces of advice. I know Will and I have immensely enjoyed talking to you today. I want to ask you one of the last things, or I guess, what's your number one piece of advice that you could give to our Millennovators in this community that you feel they could take away and utilize in their journey, whether that's starting out and about to leave their full-time job to start this, or they're doing it on the side as a side hustle? What would be your number one piece of advice for them?
Sure. And I'm going to harp on something I mentioned already. If you sit and you close your eyes and you envision the person that you become, you have the wherewithal within you to become that person.
Love that.
So anytime in life you're
drop.
faced with a situation where you have desire and you have fear, that is a sign that you need to step on that path to become the person that you knew you once could become. It's not going to happen in 3 months. It's not going to happen in 6 years. It might take many, many, many years, but you're going to be in the game and you're going to be learning. The time's going to go by anyway. You might as well get the learnings and play the game.
Matt, I love that, dude. I feel like in fact, Jonathan's across the table from me doing the Cam Newton, rip open the jersey, fired up about that.
Oh, dude, that wasn't Cam Newton. That was Superman.
But he's salty because we're Alabama fans on here, and Cam obviously played at Auburn and at Charlotte now. But man, that is exactly what I'm talking about.
So
I love
great.
that. Mentality is so everything for entrepreneurs. And Matt, if people want to dive deeper into, they're listening to this and somebody out there is like, dude, okay, let me take the jump because I'm going to take myself a little bit more seriously if we do have that LLC behind our name. Where can they find you guys and your services and all of your resources?
Sure. I mean, everything's for free. We don't really have a sales pitch. It's all out there in the open, llcuniversity.com. Visit if you'd like. If you don't, no worries, man. It's there. It's there when you need it.
And you can just pick a state. It's as easy as that.
Yeah,
which
you
is
just
amazing.
literally,
So
click
easy.
on Alabama, and we break the Alabama filing process into 8 different lessons. Everything's step by step. So we're at llcuniversity.com.
And since it's Alabama, it's all pencil and paper, right? Because we're old school down here.
I don't know if we have time for quirks, but we have in all of our internal documents, whenever we work on a state, we have a little section called the quirks, the things that are super, super unique or different. A lot of states do trying to follow the Uniform LLC Act and things like that. Things in Alabama are just done really funny. So we'll say that.
We're a backwards state. Hey, we're a backwards state. We'll save that for a next conversation or a bonus piece online, man. Because I could talk about that all day. Trust me. Growing up, born and raised on here, I can tell you some stories. Well, Matt, it was awesome having you on the show today, man. I super
Really
appreciate
was.
you being here. Super cool. You taking your time out of your day to inspire somebody in our audience means the world to us too, and to our community.
Fantastic. We're a pleasure. Sometimes I can't tell whether I should talk about LLCs or just life and motivation stuff because I'm really both.
One time I got a show to do, and if you love hip hop, I'm about to roll with you.
All right, so somebody go get Jonathan because he just ran through a brick wall. Hey, come over here, man. Come back. How awesome was that interview with Matt?
Man, I said it before the interview. I said it during the interview. That guy is just so inspirational. I mean, just motivating. I mean, I'm just ready to Superman my shirt right off and just get after it.
What a kickstart to the day. I mean, I hope that you're out there listening to this on your way to work, to the place that you're just earning an income as you side hustle, or on the way to your full-time hustle that you turned from your side hustle thinking, let's do this.
Let's
freaking get into this. Now, you don't have to take on $16,000 worth of debt at a 29% interest rate on a credit card for a domain name to do it.
Hopefully.
However, if you get that feeling in your gut, Matt talked about that, Jonathan, about how he just felt that it was right. He put on $46,000 of debt to create something, and then he started making some money off of it. And then he said, I'm going to pivot this. I want to do this all for free. I want to give it to the people for free because why? Because my gut says so.
Yeah, I mean, he's a risk taker. And one of the things that I really thought was truly unique in his story and what he said is when he has that sense of fear in his gut about taking a risk or about moving forward in something, he said, that's when I know it's right. And that's when I know I just have to push through that feeling, and ultimately that's going to lead me to success. And I just thought that was such a cool way to look at it. You have that fear in your gut, normally that's going to be right, and it'll ring true to you. And I just really appreciate how he pushes through those barriers, because ultimately when you're taking the leap to start your full-time hustle, that's leap number one, right?
Yeah.
There's several leaps after that, and there's several risks that you may or may not have to take. And so I just appreciate how he goes about that, and he just really trusts himself and trusts his feelings inside.
Well, look, as an entrepreneur, we're always stepping out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's you doing something as simple as a Facebook Live, and you're nervous of video, but you crush sales all day long in webinars, but you're nervous of being on a live video. Do something uncomfortable. Eleanor Roosevelt said, do one thing every day that scares you. And I'm going to say, do one thing every day that scares the living just piss out of you, right? Because you've got to get uncomfortable to be great. And as I just said, as an entrepreneur, there is no end to this tunnel, okay? This tunnel is not going to end. You may sell your business for hundreds of millions of dollars, and if so, I commend you, but I promise you, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who is on fire, passionate, you're going to go start another one.
That's right.
And that tunnel is going to start right back over again. There is always a light at the end of it, but that tunnel is never going to end.
That's true.
So guys, if you love this episode, you're going to need to subscribe to listen to more of this awesome content and motivational, inspiring stories from top entrepreneurs across the country. These are the type of people that we have on the show, and we do this just for you. We do this to inspire you, because I know that you can't listen to me and Jonathan speak all day. And I don't want to listen to Jonathan speak all day, to
Why
be
not?
perfectly honest with you.
Come on, man.
But by hearing these guys' stories, by realizing, look, we're going to take out the grunt work for you. We're going to give you those secret tips. We're going to give you those profitable tricks, and we're going to give you every single proven tool that is out there through some of these top entrepreneurs in our country. That's huge. I mean, if you had the opportunity to go out there and interview hundreds of top entrepreneurs, would you do it?
Oh my gosh. I mean, not only just making connections with the people, but the pieces of wisdom that all of them have that you can utilize and put together for your own, story and your own business. I mean, it's truly amazing already how much we've seen from the people we've been interviewing.
So guys, listen, we're doing this for you. Sure, being on the front end and hosting these interviews, man, it's phenomenal. But the end of the day, these podcasts are for you to learn. So subscribe to the Millennovator podcast today. We want you here. We want you to subscribe. We want you to be filled with this inspiration and motivation to get out there and turn that side hustle into a full-time hustle, because we know that you can. So subscribe today. Leave us a review on iTunes if you'd like. Subscribe to the Millennovator podcast, and we will see you next episode with more inspiration.
Check it out one time, I got a show to do. And if you love hip-hop, I'm about to roll with you.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to call your mother and tell that woman that you love her. And if you love the show almost as much, subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a sweet review. We're definitely not ashamed to blush. Now, go forward and implement what you learned from today's episode into your business. We cannot wait to personally hear your story of success and replicate it 1,000 times over.
Give me the mic,